want to bring to us a basic need that we uh, interact with like every day, like eating, yeah. And so I guess that's as much of a content kind of disclaimer I want to give. I'm going to talk about diet culture in a kind of a general way and tie it into a couple of Buddhist teachings and I've been really into deconstructing understanding diet culture over the last couple of years because it has been a place where I can bring my awareness to and to like heal like yeah a whole lifetime's worth of um, being taught that my body is bad or that the food choices I make are like morally wrong, you know. And so in March, when I was here in Alphabet, I gave a talk about diet culture and the Eightfold Path. And so this time I'm going to relate it to the seven factors of awakening. And I have a slideshow of just like five uh, decks, five windows, and that I want to share. And as I mentioned earlier, planning to have time uh, and space to talk about whatever comes up for folks. So this year and last year, as many of you know, we've been um, at the Alphabet Sangha exploring queering this moment and queer AF. So today's AF is about food. Um, and so again, there's just four more slides, and this slide has a picture of a cake with the letter C cut out of it. So it's FU and then the slice of cake and then the K, diet culture. Um, yeah, and that illustration is by, I believe, Shelley Dean. I hope I found their name. So I'm going to break down this definition of diet culture. There's four bullet points that Christy Harrison, wonderful journalist and dietitian, defines diet culture as a system of belief, yeah, as like a cultural worldview uh, that worships. And some of these might be obvious, but every day I've been like finding breath and freedom and liberation from like thinking my body is wrong because of its shape. Yeah. And so diet culture is a system of oppression that worships thinness and equates it to health and moral virtue. Yeah. And promotes weight loss as a means of attaining higher status. And so it promotes it. But the reality is like 95, 96% of people, we can't like shrink our bodies, right? So it's from the latest figure that I've seen, a $66 billion industry, sometimes called the wellness industrial complex. But this diet culture um, machine is like promoting like all the time, like that if you just lose weight, you'll attain higher status, you'll be morally better. And in some ways, it is true. We definitely live in a fat antagonistic culture and fat phobic culture. And so there is some higher status to be attained. If, but the reality is that it's not attainable. We cannot shrink our bodies. Right? And so no matter hard we try, how much we restrict or over exercise, that's not possible. And then the third point is that diet culture demonizes certain ways of eating while elevating others. So I've been so sensitive to words like healthy and unhealthy, that binary, and those are like red flag words of like, oh shit, this is like a good or bad food, that this is like a demonizing, like that there's a certain way to eat, even like say conventional and organic, or these kind of terms are really loaded with this kind of moralizing of like, you're a good person if you eat this way, and you're an unhealthy person if you eat this other way. A big example of this is like sugar. Like sugar is really demonized. And from my understanding, and I just re-listened to a podcast this morning, and I'll have a list of some resources. This Christy Harrison, who came up with these diet culture, and she didn't make them up, but that I'm citing, did a 14-minute episode about sugar and how much it's not. Um, a lot of these studies talk about they're making correlation equal causation. And just because people are experiencing health issues, that it has to be this one thing. And it rarely does it look at the social determinants of health. And that's a big public health term that talks about like all the other factors that are at play in the places that we play and live and work. And so yeah, so a lot of these studies are flawed, and generally just like blame individuals for like systemic issues. And so what happens with these systemic issues is that it oppresses, right, us, and specifically us, women, femme, trans, non-binary, fat, all the marginalized groups that a lot of us belong to. Like it really oppresses us more because we, and what we've been doing here at Alphabet and what many of our ancestors have done, like reclaim this word queer, and use it as a verb, that we're queering like the picture of perfect health, like because we know that many of us like don't fit that picture. And it's very, as these diet culture rules, they're like rules, and unattainable goals are really centering specific, you know, beauty, quote unquote, beauty aesthetics, right? That are totally based in racist ideology, eugenics, and or is another mode of dominator culture. Yeah. Okay, so shake that out a little bit. And I want to list the 7 factors of awakening and relate them to principles of intuitive eating. So there's a big disclaimer with this term intuitive eating, because it's been co-opted as another diet term with the wellness lifestyle, or and so but these principles come from like there's a website and a movement called health at every size. And so these principles come up in this community that are doing a lot of good work, and a lot of anti-diet dietitians. And so I'm relating these 9 principles to these 7 factors of awakening. And so this first one is rejecting the diet mentality. And these are like aspirations or affirmations. They're not diet rules, because that's another red flag kind of term. It's like food rules or food plans or whatever, diets. There are many kind of coded ways we talk about like the way that we talk about ways we like quote unquote ought to like nourish ourselves. And so I'm relating this rejecting the diet mentality is really saying like fuck you to like anyone telling me like how I should nourish my body, and the lie that if you just, and there's parallels to meditation here, like, or mindfulness or whatever, that, oh, if you just do it this way, then you won't suffer or something, you know. And so rejecting the diet mentality is just that knowing that you're fine as you are, you know. And so there's joy that comes out of that. So joy is one of the 7 factors of awakening, that we need joy to keep on practicing. Yeah. And so this next principle of intuitive eating is honoring our hunger. And so much of diet culture is like denying our hunger, and now, and denying our like worthiness to feel satisfied. And for me, I've equated hunger as like that there's like a something wrong with me, that I should be able to like go without or something, you know. And then it's equated with like some weakness, or um and that my hunger is bad and I should suppress it, you know, with a pill, or suppress it like with meditation. Like if I just meditate enough, then I'll transcend hunger, you know. And hunger in different levels of, um, yeah, like spirit, you know, spiritually and like emotionally, right? And and the factor of awakening I'm relating to, when we honor our hungers, we get energy. Like there's an energy and like determination to be like, you know what, I'm gonna honor my body's needs, and tend them and care for them. And so that relates to the third principle of making peace with food. Um, because how much, and it's a daily occurrence. I'm grateful that I'm aware in moments of like how like I'm fighting with my food, like, oh, you like you have to do this for me, you have to like cure my blues with blueberries, or you have to like not, you know, or make my brain smarter with omega 3s, right? And it's like this fighting with food, right? When it's just food, right? And so the 7 factors of awakening is like equanimity and tranquility. Like, how could I be tranquil and relaxed and just be, you know, with the food, and why I've been watching TV and eating now, when at some point it was like bad to do that or whatever, you know, and like, and then I'm not being, you know, mindful or whatever. And then, and then equanimity is just like feeling the sense of like how I am stressed out if I'm, you know, eating right or whatever, and be okay with that aspect of it, and how that's balanced. um, Equanimity, is short kind of definition, is equally close to all things. So I'm close to that, that aversion of pushing away and stress, and then, but I'm also like appreciative and like kind of like just with the food. Yeah. So a fourth out of the 9 is challenge the food police. So that kind of internalized, you know, we live in this punishment culture, right? And mass incarceration, and how we've internalized that oppressor, right? That food police, and kind of like, you know, did you eat enough? Did you drink enough water today? You know, this and that. And so, um, so investigation is the factor of awakening here. It's like investigating the nature of reality, which I feel we're doing right now. It's like to notice like, how do we punish ourselves for our food choices, you know, like, and then who taught us. You know, one of the food policing things I had growing up was finish everything on your plate, you know. and and it was, yeah, it's just a food rule, and came from trauma and food scarcity. So I understand that now, but it's something that I've internalized. Yeah. Um, so we get to challenge that through investigation, and investigation helps us challenge that. So respecting our fullness. And one way to do that is to be okay when we quote unquote overeat. Like, like there's times where we're just really enjoying it. And so, and like, when have we been punished for overeating? I remember on meditation retreats, I had one beloved teacher, amazing person, say like, stop eating 5 bites before you're full. And for years, that's been like churning in me. Like, there's like a right way to do this, and there's like a perfect fullness, you know, and it just created more obsession with my relationship, my disordered relationship with food, and trying to make peace with it. And so the factor of awakening here is like concentration. So one of the definitions of concentration is like um, one pointedness. Like we're just able to focus. So like some of us in the meditation, we're like focusing on our breath or our body, to have that capacity to just focus on one thing. And so that we can focus on like what our body needs and give it time and space to be like, okay, um, what does fullness feel like, and and that requires seeing maybe some of the emotional aspects of like, where am I still feeling not full or in need or in want, and so that's another term, red flag term, diet culture term, is big air quotes on this one, emotional eating, like implying that there's a moment in the day that I'm not emotional, right? And so that's like another way like to shame us for like eating. So that goes in with this next one of like discovering the satisfaction factor. And like full isn't like an objective state, just like meditating. It's kind of hard to like kind of say this is, you're doing it, you're practicing, in the right way or whatever. It's just like it's very subjective. So discovering what pleasure means to you, like how can you take pleasure or not in food, right? And so that this discovering the satisfaction factor is like really allowing us to feel joy and pleasure in our food choices, and honoring our feelings without using food. So like sometimes like we become so obsessed that this is like the only way, and then there are other ways, right, to honor our experience, and that requires mindfulness and some more equanimity, to notice other ways we might honor and be with the pleasant or unpleasant feelings that are arising in any given moment, and respecting our body, yeah, and that requires investigation. These are all natural capacities. These 7 factors are already in us. Yeah, we practice them. This investigating the nature of our experience, and so that requires learning like how our bodies um, have been disrespected and continue to be disrespected, and and so how we can find connection to to a sense of spaciousness, so that we can like metabolize the lies that we're taught on the daily, that our bodies aren't beautiful and perfect as they are. And then we honor health with gentle nutrition. So this loving kindness practice, that's such a big part of healing, I think, for many of us. And so we bring that tranquility and mindfulness to honoring like what's the next thing I can do to nourish myself. Um, so here's a visual of the restriction pendulum, and so this is talking about food, like what inevitably happens, we're on one side of like restriction and these other red flag quote diet culture terms of clean eating, and the next slide, I have a cute picture of clean eating. So, oh, I've been good, right? And then so on the other, we swing to the other side of like, oh, I'm bad, like I ate bad today, or So the other side of clean eating might be a cheat day, and these are terms that are like so common, like in the gym culture, like the cheat day is a big term. And so we like swing back and forth, healthy eating and unhealthy eating, bad eating. Yeah. And so the more, even though we feel out of control, and we do different things to feel a sense of control, including with our food choices, that the generally what happens if we restrict, we swing over to like binge and overeating, like because we're trying to find some equilibrium, and we're just swinging back and forth, and so like lifestyle change is like another term like that. I mean, lifestyle makes me think of like the homo antagonism, right? That I chose my queerness as a lifestyle, right? And so these kind of things, yeah, the more we're not aware of them, we're like fighting them so hard and gripping, and then we like swing to the other side. And this happens with meditation too. It's like, well, I meditated yesterday, so I was good yesterday, but I didn't meditate today, so I'm like a bad person, right? And then we get this kind of disordered relationship with our practice, when in actuality, there's like, it's your practice. It's like, and you're already present. We're already present. We're already embodied, right? It just, we forget, we get distracted, right? And so how we've internalized this with our personal practice of meditation. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of another way. It's like we think meditation will be like this cure all. And then if we're not meditating right, it's because I'm not practicing enough mindfulness. That's why I got sick, or that's why I'm fat, or this why I'm like, this bad thing happened, or whatever. And the more I continue to come back to this practice of being with, the more I realize it's like I'm being more with myself. Like I'm realizing more and more of who I am, right? And and then Buddhist teachings kind of blow that out of the water. It's because like, who am I really, right? I'm definitely not like a bad person, like I'm definitely trying my best. I'm definitely living, aspiring toward an ethical life. And so it's interesting to see how the ways we nourish ourselves end up becoming like pendulating on this like restriction, and not letting ourselves be who we are, not letting our feelings be expressed, ideally creatively, because the opposite of that is like reacting out of our wounds and our traumas, right? But like having that space to like be able to, let those, I'm going to use metabolize again, to use that um, term, when that we have that space, then we're able to like really be with who we really are, which is changing. That's a good Buddhist um, tenet, yeah. But also like not like, also like, yeah, like this core, like, So here's my funny picture. I didn't make this. I couldn't find the citation, but it's a picture of someone in the shower, and the instruction is how to eat clean. And so this person is holding a bag of crisps. So I guess it's a UK thing. How to eat clean. Eat snacks in the shower. So that's how you clean eat. All right. So there's one more slide, and I just have it here so that it could be easy to copy and paste, and I'll do that after I open it up in a few moments to comments or questions. But these are great resources that break um, more diet culture stuff down. Um, so I thank you for your attention.